Paul Homchick saying Happy America's Cup Day. Indeed, it is. He's on YouTube today, as is Ted Ryman from Cape Town. And Gordon Smith in Denmark. Ed Worley saying cheers from SoCal. Greg Phillips from the beautiful Gold Coast of Australia, up near where Hamilton Island Race Week, HAMO, is going on. I wish I were there. They're the winners of the day, anybody in that event. Hi, T&J. Alistair Murray off for a ride, but he'll catch us in replay. Go Weirn. Yeah, congrats to Matt Weirn, winner in Den Haag. Tier de Jong in SoCal. Tier, good evening from the Hamilton HISC, Hailing Island Sailing Club. Emmett says, as we get this one through the starting line.
Ooh, I like that
too. You like that photo?
Yep.
Yeah, I do too. It's a beautiful photo. I don't know, or it's a painting, obviously, and I don't know from whence it came. We're going to use it again later in the show. But I found it on the America's Cup website without credit to anybody. So maybe one of the Fozy know who took that photo. There it is again, full scale photo. It's a painting on the back. So when the boats are going around cows in 1851, America there on the left in the lead apparently over Aurora. Fritz Muller in Miami. Hello, Fritz. Thanks for the 170-year losing streak reminder, Alex Hayworth is saying. Joe Holtzman in Estes Park, Colorado. Rick Banero, hello, all remember, like, follow, and share indeed. Thanks for that. Pedro Foiling Sailor, a.k.a. Peter Stevens, down in Australia. Alistair Murray. Hailing Island, yeah, that's where Emmett's at Hailing Island, and we'd all like, including myself especially, like to be at Hamilton. Is it a Butterworth, Fritz Mueller? It might well be. 19th century, might be a Butterworth. That painting. Good point. But I'm not sure. And as I said, I found it on the website, the americascup.com website, and I'm not 100% sure. I was hoping one of you would know. Welcome to show number 643 for Tuesday, the historic 22nd of August, the 170, second? Second, I guess. Anniversary of the win by America around the Isle of Wight. We'll be celebrating that today. We'll also be celebrating our Fozy, just with a quick thanks to Andrew McIrvin, who joined us on Friday's show. And if you didn't watch that show, we went on for the better part of 2 hours. And Julia, it was,
never a dull moment.
It's just, he is so, you talk about an encyclopedic brain.
Yes.
And not just on yachting.
Yeah. And he has names and numbers at the tip of his tongue on everything he does.
Smart boy he is.
Yes.
Joe Cool checking in, made it. Ace SCW. What does that mean, Joe Cool? Thank you, Andrew, for that. And in appreciation, really, Ed Worley saying, really enjoyed Andrew. And in appreciation for that, I thought we'd open with a video from the International Maxi Association from Rolex about their upcoming Maxi Yacht Rolex Cup at YCCS, Yacht Club Costa Smeralda, in just a few weeks. Enjoy this fabulous video.
Intense racing, minimal margins, first-class action. Marking its 33rd edition, the most powerful and elegant Maxis in the world compete in one of the sport's most prestigious events. The Maxi Yacht Rolex Cup in Porto-Cervo, Sardinia.
This is one of the great regattas of the year. That simple.
The pinnacle of the Maxi racing calendar in Europe, if not the world.
A beautiful yacht club, a great organization. This is what everybody wants.
Organised by the Yacht Club Costa Smeralda in conjunction with the International Maxi Association and partnered by Rolex for close to 40 years, the regatta offers intense big boat action within a breathtaking sailing environment.
It's the whole flavor of Italy. Colors, the weather, you can't improve it.
We call this sailing heaven. Flat water, great breeze. These are the ideal conditions.
So when you add all these factors together, that's what makes this the one event that all the best sailors in the world want to come to.
5 days of competition are scheduled, offering a series of short course and longer coastal races through the spectacular Maddalena archipelago. The event is renowned for its excellence. As a showcase for cutting-edge maxi yacht technology and design, and the idyllic setting. Racing at the 2023 Maxi Yacht Rolex Cup commences on September 4th.
There's one of your favorite sailors in that video, Julia.
I know, I saw him.
Kay Ardini was on there.
Yes. What boat is it on? Do we?
I don't know. Andrew probably knows. Andrew is on. Hi, I'm in Emmett Country in a fish and chip shop in Weymouth. Well, except he's at Hailing Island right now. He'll be home, he said, after, I guess, in the next week or so, back to Weymouth. Having just sailed from Cowes on to Dartmouth tomorrow, Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin. Thank you again, Andrew, for coming on Friday. This morning, after I sent that video to Andrew and told him I was going to run it at the top of the show here in the A block, and I said, by the way, I haven't done any jury work at YCCA, Yacht Club Costa Smeralda, in a long time. If you ever need a judge
Yeah.
at the Maxi at the Rolex Maxi Yacht Cup,
Yeah.
I'd be happy to go. David James agreeing. He is quite, meaning Andrew McIrvin is quite erudite. I think that's the right word.
Indeed.
I think the opening ceremony, Stingray, hello, Stingray up in Seattle. He thinks the opening ceremonies for the next Cup, America's Cup 37, will be in Barcelona on this anniversary day, August 22nd, 2024. Yeah, Baton Rouge talking about what that is, a beautiful clubhouse at YCCS. There's Timothy Rossi. Hello, Timothy. Timothy, he is America's Cup for Orient Express team next year. He's apparently joining that team.
Oh, good for
Bravo
him.
Zulu.
Yeah.
He just won the Chicago Match Race Cup, whatever that cup is called. It's part of the World Match Racing Tour.
Yeah.
He was at Gov Cup. We got to know him there.
Right.
And he struggled a bit at Gov Cup, but man, he went undefeated in Chicago last weekend,
Perfect.
including beating Gavin Brady and Jeffrey Peterson and tell me who else.
Oh, good for him.
Cole Tapper. So bravo Zulu to Timothy. And if he's joining the Orient Express team, that is fabulous news. Bravo Zulu, Timothy. Replying to David James, how funny. I was just about to write the same comment. I wonder what about how erudite he is.
Yes.
Indeed. Hi from Shetland. Graham Sweeney up in Scotland. Hello, Graham. AWSC, Joe Coolis, Antioch Water Sports Club, located across the river from the marina.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good evening, Fozy. Christopher Gillingham, thanks
hello,
again for your
Christopher.
scarf that you
Yes.
sent to Julia.
Indeed, it's been appreciated and worn.
And it has. You wore it all last week.
I did.
And I appreciate the tie. And next chance I get, I'm going to wear that tie, which was the Harkin tie, I think that was, with the design of an IACC yacht. Was that from Christopher Gillingham? Was that from the 90, did you say 2 Cup or the 87 Cup? Couldn't have been 87 because that was 12-meter era. TP52 World started today, but no racing due to a lack of breeze. Yeah, I have a video teasing that, but they did not race in Barcelona because guess what? It was too light. So Groover is saying, now I know 2 people who use the word erudite. Banner, well done, Timothy. Yeah, I think that is just fabulous. Painting by Tim Thompson, Alex Hayward says. I think he's talking about that painting, Julia, that you like.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's good to know. I'd like to know more about Tim Thompson.
Well, we'll check into that, and maybe as we get through this, because I have a number of historic. See how I managed, even though I didn't go to Stanford, I managed to pronounce it without an H. Historic photos. Well, come on, us simple country boys from Michigan, we're supposed to know how to pronounce words.
Historic is okay.
Historic, right?
No.
Hurt story. Do we politically correct? The Hawaii wildfires are historic, and they're not. I mean, you talk about a mess and a continuing mess. This guy, talk about croutons. Maui's emergency services chief, who doesn't really know much about it, as it turns out, about emergency services. He's a lawyer. He's a political appointee. He resigned after facing massive criticism for not activating the sirens. Oh, I thought if I activated the sirens, the people would think there were a tsunami and they'd run up the hill into the fire. Well, excuse me. They have a whole lot of, Julia, we talked about this on the show the other day. you've got those government notices where they send texts on the bottom and they say, hey, there's a risk of this, whether it's a fire
Right.
or an earthquake or a this or that's just
Right.
happened. And they have that same system in Hawaii, including, hey, we think there's an inbound nuclear attack, which they had a fake news false alarm
Right.
some years ago in that. This guy, what a crouton. And then he tried to explain his way out of it, and then he said he resigned for mental health reasons.
Well, I'm sure he did.
Exactly.
I would too.
I would too. Excuse me. And then the president was there, and the president's always had the reputation for being an empathizer in chief, but he's faced criticism for his response to Hawaii's wildfire relief. It took him forever to get out there because he was on vacation. And they're still only sending $700 per person when we're giving $2,000 to immigrants. We're sending billions to Ukraine. We don't take care of the people in Ohio that had that where the train derailed and there were all the
Palestine.
Palestine. They pronounce it differently in Ohio. But I mean, excuse me, let's take care of Americans and take care of people. Wherever in the world, your country should be doing that. This guy, talk about a beleaguered mayor, and he seems to be trying to do a good job. This is Maui County Mayor Richard Bisson, who's, he's saddened by these numbers, to say the least, but at least the count of missing people is down from 2,000, if there's any consolation, to only 850 people still missing. Now, okay, some of those people got off island. Some of those people don't want to be found. People up here in the Redwoods here in California, right? There are plenty of people up there who are evading, whatever, the authorities. And there's probably some people out there in Maui the same way. But there's also people who jumped into the ocean and probably were swept to their death, sadly. So still a lot of people, as my brother Paul said 2 weeks ago, whenever this happened, a lot of people still missing. Okay, good news. Fantastic match on Sunday. Those of you who got up early here in the States and watched it, those of you who were in Sydney and maybe were lucky enough to go see it, and those of you who watched in Europe, España, Spain defeated England 1-0, and it was a nail-biter right down to the final few seconds in, you call it extra time, not overtime, extra time. Fabulous match. Bravo Zulu to Spain on their historic win.
Spanish supporters erupted with joy at the final whistle as Spain won the 2023 Women's World Cup. Spain's Olga Carmona scored the only goal of the game in the first half. It's a double achievement, she says, winning today and also motivating more women to play soccer. Disappointed English fans shared that same optimism for the future.
Their legacy will live on. I'm looking up at my local teams, I'm getting into it, I'm feeling like all my friends are, we want to support women.
Spain's victory comes in the face of recent turmoil for the team. Last year, 15 players stepped away, calling for a more professional environment and better pay. 3 of them played in this tournament. This observer says their journey underlines the challenge for women in sports.
As women, we tend to have to do that little sort of extra push. We have to perform a little bit better. We have to prove ourselves a little bit more. And in the end of the day, a lot of the times we do it, but we have so many barriers stacked up against us. And I think Spain proved that we can still do it.
This soccer analyst says there needs to be more professional leagues.
The little girl that's starting at 5, she doesn't really know. But when you start being 15 years old, you got chances to be on the provincial teams and on the national squad, and you know that there's a professional league to look at. It brings a lot more chances for these really good players, really good women, young women to develop.
The World Cup was a global hit for broadcasters, and FIFA announced it sold more seats than during the last tournament in 2019.
And the audience numbers all across the globe really do tell a story of how massive the sport is. And I think federations right now would need to invest into their teams, into their national teams.
In fact, on Saturday, the Australian government pledged over $100 million to women's sports, including soccer. Chloe Rinaldi, CBC News, Montreal.
$100 million pledged by the Australian government for women's sports. I mean, the reason for running this is, okay, we love this, enjoyed this game, loved women's soccer, particularly this whole tournament. But the U.S. performance notwithstanding. But nonetheless, this is about women's sports, the promotion, the rise of women's sports, which can only be good for yachting, for yacht racing and sailing. So bravo Zulu to everybody involved. And bravo zulu to the Spanish ladies who Stingray says they have better legs. Well, their legs lasted longer. In that event, Chris Exley checking in from sunny Salem, Massachusetts, a great small town in the northeast of our country. And one other piece of news to catch you up on this big hurricane everybody, the media got all excited about. But once again, Mark Michelson, our weather guru, and everybody was saying, it's headed for San Diego. It's headed for L.A. He said, no, I think it's probably going to go in just north or maybe even south of Ensenada, which is the town south. Tijuana is right on the border of Baja California and California, and just below that is where Ensenada, where the famous Newport to Ensenada races every more or less April, and a fun town, great town, and that's where the hurricane went in, and it was by then it was Cat 1 or maybe even a tropical storm, as Mark Michelson, our SI weather guru, said it would be.
Yes, he's so remarkably correct.
And he was once again, and it went in, and he said, the wind, yeah, okay, there's going to be 35 knots. But, you all of you around the world are used to 35, 40 knot winds. Bloody hell. And the media loves to spin it up because it gets viewers watching. It gets eyeballs. And once again, Mark was right. It went in shore just north of Ensenada, maybe even south of Ensenada.
But it is the first time that such a storm has come into the U.S. since 1939.
True, a tropical storm, not into the U.S., into California.
Into California.
In fact, one just went into Texas. And do you see anybody in Texas? Do you see our Fozy in Texas talking about some 35-knot winds and a bunch of rain? I mean, they have them down there all the time. And, so it flooded. And as Mark predicted, it was going to be out in Palm Desert, Palm Springs, and, up into Las Vegas, where they're going to get a lot of rain. And those places are dry as a proverbial, may I say it, fart in a dust storm, as my dad used to say. Huh? You want to finger wag that?
Not necessarily.
No, it's not so bad.
No.
And, there's Palm Springs, and the media, Stephen Frederick, another of our foes, he said, only in the desert areas below the mountain ranges, just like any other big rainstorm. Palm Springs was the only place the media could find flooding. LOL, Palm Springs floods every time there is a heavy rain. And that's true. And there was some flooding in Las Vegas and a couple other places. But yet again, California's Stormageddon 2023, we will rebuild. Meg was disappointed. She's sitting there in her apartment in Ocean Beach looking out on the ocean. Yeah. I posted a couple of her videos that they sent through, and it was a big nothing burger. But good. I'm glad it was a nothing burger, and hopefully it will continue to be as the Atlantic hurricane season now builds up. We said they just suffered their first Atlantic season hurricane in Texas. But Julie, in the meantime, there was that horrific flooding that's in China that's going to affect the whole rice bowl, the rice crops. I mean, it's awful. And, Graham Sweeney deals with this stuff every other week.
Right.
Up in Yell, Scotland, and you don't see them having a big hissy fit about it. Enough. Graham Sweeney, 35 International Day is a 3-peg washing day, and Shetland 4-peg is for 50 plus. Southern California's just spoiled. Well, the interesting thing, Ed Worley, as you know, living in SoCal, is that you also had a 5.5 magnitude 5.5 earthquake in the middle of all that. That was probably a bigger shakeup, no pun intended. Hillary, except it was one L, William Haynes. It was a great name for a big bag of wind, kind of like a certain former first lady. They had 45 at this is Windgrove. We're going up the hill here. We had 45 at Davis Island Yacht Club in the mass that turned into the TS that hit Texas on Sunday. So, exactly. Julie Aaron's where it's beautiful in Cleveland on the South Shore of Lake Erie. And it's nice to see you on there. Steve Gruber, I'm going to read one more comment. Gruber up there. Sounds like the Spanish women's team, from that video, is going through the same battle as the U.S. women's national team did after the 19 World Cup, equal pay for equal work. Well, the problem with that is that it's maybe equal work, but in today's television-driven world, it's equal ratings. And the women's soccer, until now, women's football, doesn't get the same ratings by any stretch that the men do. So it's television that's calling the payday shot way more than equal work. So, they're working to equalize that, I think.
They are.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Fortunately, Northern California never has had this, David James said. At 35 is Estes Park in Colorado. They have wind like that all the time. Here in San Francisco, Julia,
yes,
we have wind like that. Maybe not 35, but
sure we do.
25 to 30 in the afternoon. Bloody hell. What day are we celebrating today?
Besides
the America's Cup.
Right.
But what else are we celebrating? There's your clue. Any idea from that pink umbrella and the Asian-looking gentleman under it? We are celebrating Qixi Festival. Sorry, I didn't quite do that right. Which is celebrated on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month, the Chinese lunar calendar, which this year has fallen on August 22nd, 2023. Now, if you want to know more about this festival, which is known as the Valentine's Day or the 7/7 Festival, Valentine's Day in China, we've done a clever thing here this morning. I pat myself on the back.
Yes.
But if you listen to this, tell me if you recognize a certain voice.
Chinese Valentine's Day, Qixi Festival. Qixi Festival, or Double Seventh Festival, is also called the Chinese Valentine's Day. It falls on the 7th day of the 7th Chinese lunar month. In 2023, it falls on the 22nd of August. It has a history of more than 2,000 years and is one of the world's oldest festivals of love. It celebrates the romantic legend of two lovers, a cowherd and a weaver girl, Niu Lang and Zhi Nu. Niu Lang married a fairy, Zhi Nu, whose mother was a goddess. She sent Zhi Nu back to heaven. Niu Lang followed Zhi Nu, but was blocked by the Milky Way. However, magpies were allowed to form a bridge for them to meet once a year on Qixi. Traditions of the Qixi festival include stargazing, eating qiaoguo pastry, and praying for love and happiness. In the modern dynamic Chinese market, Qixi isn't just a festival, it's an experience. Qixi is celebrated with the exchange of gifts, cards, flowers, and romantic gestures. Brands also embrace the Qixi spirit through e-commerce and social media campaigns. So, for all the Fozies, if you have any Chinese friends, why not send them a message to say Happy Qixi Festival or Happy Chinese Valentine's Day?
Now, how cool is that?
Oh, that
Bravo,
is neat.
Zoom. Several of you, Gordon Smith, Chris Exley, they recognize that's
It's Lily.
Lily.
Yeah.
Lily Zhu. And I sent that video this morning to John, or maybe last night, and said, hey, is there any chance you can get Lily, Zhu Lizhi, she's known in Chinese, the bronze Beijing Olympic medalist 2008, the flag bearer in 2012, and also winner of the gold medal in the ILCA 6 now. Author of Golden Lily, Asia's first dinghy sailing gold medalist, and of course 2012 Chinese Sportswoman of the Year. And you think of all the billion-plus people in that country, Julia, and she is the Sportswoman of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, she's a Fozie, been on the show a number of times, John Emmett's wife. Now we're delighted to call her a friend and obviously a cool person. So I sent that video over and said, we're going to celebrate this it'll be much more authentic. We can get Lily to voice it rather than me reading it in my I couldn't pronounce anything anyway. And not only she do that, but notice the timing, how perfect. Okay, I did a little editing on the video this morning when her voiceover came over. But bravo, Zulu.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you, John. And happy Valentine's Day to all of you who are celebrating Chinese. The 7/7 Festival, Chinese.
7/7 is a nice festival, yeah.
And I worked on pronouncing Z. You got to put your teeth together. Zia. Thank you, Golden Lily.
Yes, how wonderful. Yeah.
172 years ago, we're also celebrating what happened on the 22nd of August, 1851. But before we get to all that, let's get to John Emmett and his Coach's Corner report. He has left Den Haag. He's now at Hailing Island, as we mentioned at the top of the show. Before we get to his Hailing Island report, though, we want to talk about this again, the wrap-up. This was a big event. There were lots of problems with an event this size. The Dutch, to their everlasting credit, mitigated most of them. was a pain to cart your boats from for a long distance to get to wherever the dinghy park was for your particular class and then to your particular launch ramp. But they did it. The sailors were good-spirited. But this ENP, the Emerging Nations Program that John led along with some other coaches, was a huge success. And I found a video that he did, and I'm not even sure he knows I'm running this video, but I thought it was really cool, including this kid from Belize who sounds like he's more American, Julia, than you and I. But look at this cool video at the Allianz Sailing World Championship from John Emmett.
So I'm here with the Emerging Nations Programme at The Hague. There's been on-the-water coach support. Chap to my right, you've been doing the ILCA Sevens. Can you introduce yourself and tell us where you're from?
Hi, I'm Trent Hardwick and I'm from Belize.
And can you just tell us a little bit about your sailing background and what attracted you to the Emerging Nations Programme?
So I started sailing when I was 8 years old in Belize. My first boat was a bosun, which is a Sea Scouts boat from the British Navy that they practiced with in Belize.
It's funny, I actually sailed a bosun many years ago with the Ski Scouts in the UK, so small world.
Yeah, that's pretty cool actually. I didn't know anyone else really had background in that.
But tell us a little bit about how you got into the Olympic side of sailing, because ILCA 7, I guess everyone here is hoping to go to Olympic Games.
Yep, so I started the ILCA 7 when I was 18, so 2 years ago. I did my first regatta up in Florida in Fort Lauderdale, I believe. And after that, I just fell in love with the 7 and competing at a high level. I did the 6 previously, and it's very different moving from the 6 to the 7. Everyone's definitely in it to compete for sure.
I mean, it's an Olympic class for men, so that really puts it on the table. Looking at the venue behind doesn't really do it justice, but tell us a little bit about The Hague.
So The Hague is a pretty interesting venue. It doesn't look like there's much current out there, but when it swings, it's like 2 knots of current either going up or down the beach. And it makes the heck of a difference on the start. You could get pushed down the start, push over the start. It'll make a difference on the ley lines, all of that. But overall, it's a pretty nice venue. You get a mix of everything, some chop, some swell, all of that.
I think going forward, probably really good learning experience for you. What would you say to folks back home who are thinking of taking up sailing or even taking up full-time sailing?
I definitely think you should try to go for it. It's really something you appreciate over time. Once you've gotten to love it and you've gotten to put time in it, you like get invested. So I think if you're in question of it, you should just go for it. It doesn't hurt to give it a try, and if you don't try, you'll never know.
Perfect. And what we would love to see is the Emerging Nations Programme grow. We've got a huge range of athletes and, you know, even a few different languages spoken in the boat park makes it quite interesting. So what's your view on this sort of multi-country thing?
It's great getting all the diversity in. I think that's always a big thing in sports, getting everyone included, having everyone there to represent themselves. So I definitely support having every country here, as many as possible, and all the different languages and cultures here. Makes all the difference and it makes it super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I've loved it. It feels like a great coach when you get so much improvement in such a small period of time. It's roughly 12 months to Olympic Games. Wishing you all the best for the future, and we will definitely follow your progress.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
If you've enjoyed this video, please remember to like, share and subscribe.
I mean, bravo Zulu to John.
Oh, yes.
And he manages to get exactly the right kid. And as Paul Homchik said, he's a big, strong, strapping kid. Nicely said, young man. And I'll never forget the first time I went to an international regatta and was, going there a bit intimidated. How am I going to do against these other people? And then did just fine. But what a great experience. And we forget about it. There aren't very many people who have the experience, even on this silly show, where we're talking to people literally all over the world.
Right.
Okay, there's a swath between kind of the Middle East and Asia that we don't cover, and they're asleep. But by the same token, there's not a lot of sailing in that part of the world. But where there is a lot of sailing, there are people watching, and we have friends now.
Yes.
And because these kids now will have friends all over the world, and they're some lucky. It's just... we're all lucky.
Yes, absolutely.
I think it gives us a cool and a different, obviously, and cool outlook on life that you wouldn't have without having friends like Graham Sweeney and Scotland, and Steve Gruber in New Zealand, and or wherever the hell Steve is. He's
Right.
wherever in between. Steve's here in the States, right? But Hamish Ross and the gang in Australia. What a great, lucky group we are. At least I feel that way. The Caribbean produces a lot of great sailors from very small countries. Speaking of Gruber, that's what he's saying. Yep. For what it's worth, War of the Roses ended today. Norman Schwarzkopf was born. Also, okay, David James got a lot of other historic items for us.
Mhm.
Gruber's in Connecticut. That's right. Okay, now we have another. This is his regular report. Another video from John Emmett sailing. He's now in Hayling. Why can't I say that? Hayling Island, the Hayling Island Sailing Club for
Where
the
is that?
ILCA National Championship. So we'll pull that up in
Yeah.
a sec.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. I'm here at Hayling Island Sailing Club, which is, wow, I'm biased, but it's one of the best sailing clubs in the world. And it's an interesting combination because it's not purely volunteers. They do have quite a lot of paid staff and very professional race teams, including people who have been race teams at the past and the future Olympic Games. So we've had some fantastic management here at the ILCA UK National Sailing Championships, and we've had the whole family here. So off the top of my head, it's 244 boats between the 4s, 6s and 7s, and that's a really nice thing because you get people coming straight out of Optimus and they have the opportunity to rub shoulders with the best. I mean, we haven't got the Olympic guys because they've just got back from The Hague and probably like myself are absolutely exhausted, but the camaraderie, it's an important thing. Because there's so many boats, we've actually split the 6s into 2 fleets, and tomorrow we'll go into gold and silver, and that in a way is when the real racing begins. So 6 races done, 6 races to go, and on the other race course we have 4s and 7s. So the 4s are sailing a slightly shorter inward inner loop, so to keep the target time exactly the same. And we have Bracklesham Bay and we have Hayling Island, 2 fantastic race courses, although the channel does seem to have quite a lot of current for the getting in, getting out. Race officer always enthusiastically says 40 minutes to sail time. I haven't made it in under an hour, and I don't think I was that willing to risk my centreboard going for a little cut through. You can't see so much in the background here, but we've got some wonderful sponsors. We've got Ovington, who's a producer of their hulls. We have Sailing Fast, who sells a lot of kit and supports a lot of events. I'm here with Rooster, which makes some fantastic kit, and I've been a big supporter of the class for a long time. And then further down we've got Propverse and Southeast Sailboats, who I actually use for my rigging, and it's really nice to have them on here. One thing you can't see in the background, people are actually working hard at repairing boats, getting people ready for the next day, and that's something which happened as well at the 29er Worlds, 29er Nationals. We had shock sailing there, just keeping everybody on the water. So yeah, I'm pretty tired. We only did 2 races today. I don't know if you've seen the interview we did. The standards, or I should say ILCA 7s, did a 3 race day today just to get ahead of schedule. And I, as a farmer, that expression about making hay when the sun shines, I think is really important. So yeah, really fun day, and I'll try and catch you on the show, and next week I'll finally be back in Weymouth. If you haven't already, please like, share and subscribe.
He's just, today you can tell the energy he's got. He's back home, at least in the UK, not home in Weymouth. Hayling Island is in the north, kind of northeast of Cowes, if you go northeast across the Solent.
Yeah.
And it's just east of Portsmouth on the south, in Hampshire, on the south coast of England. John Emmett is there. 245 boats in their national championship.
Fabulous.
Fabulous. So we're not going to spend a lot of time covering it, but when John's someplace, you know it is significant. And we appreciate his report. Again, his regular reports. Hadn't missed I don't remember when he's missed a show. We've missed a few, but he's never missed one.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
Bannero is saying, J.E., John Emmett must have the biggest regatta swag collection on the face of the earth, never mind trunks full of performance T-shirts and event logos. Well, it looks to me like he's getting a little brand awareness there for Rooster. He had a Rooster shirt on. He's standing in front of the Rooster tent. Good for him. And Greg Phillips is asking if Emmett's watching. Greg Phillips is asking if you're planning to attend the World Masters in Adelaide in Australia next year. Oh, he's already said, yep. Okay, so maybe we'll get some reportage from down there. Clayton Embley. Hello, Clayton Allen Embley. I helped build a 12-meter on St. Kitts. They are building a great Opti laser program on the island. Nice. Gordon Smith thanking John, as are we, for his regular cool report. Just a quick Bravo Zulu. Speaking of the regatta just overing, it just ended in Den Haag. We don't have any video yet. I haven't seen they got 1 hour and 2 and 3 hour videos, and I don't want to go through there and cut those out from Den Haag from the World Sailing Championships. But Bravo Zulu to these folks, I just want to make mention of 3 or 4 key people. This is our longtime friend. I'm not sure we've ever had her on the show. Parasailing Gold was won by Betsy Allison here from the U.S. She's a 5 times Rolex Yachts Woman of the Year here in the U.S. Terrific sailor, and one of the best sailors, men or women, in this country in the modern era. She suffered a major health setback, which apparently qualified her to sail in the para division, the parasailing, which was held at a different venue but concurrent with the regatta in Den Haag last week, 10 days. Bravo Zulu to her on her recovery and then on her eventual gold medal there. Also, we've been covering this gentleman a little bit. He's from Singapore, Max Mader, who's of Swiss descent, Swiss, Chinese, I guess, Singaporean descent. He's only 16. And we said he was coming as a major force in kiteboarding. John Emmett said he was also going to be one of the top, and he indeed is. He's just won his first world title there in the men's kiteboarding. Bravo Zulu to him. Bravo Zulu also to the host country. 5 years ago in Aarhus, the Netherlands finished at the top of the pile to claim the IOC President's Trophy. That's awarded to the country that has the best overall combined finishes, scores, and they did so again in Den Haag, that is the Netherlands. A sensational showing to finish the opening series by Bart Lambrou and Floris van der Werken, who saw them take 49er gold, while Luc van Upsiland won the IQ foil in windsurfing. That alone would have been enough to finish as the top nation, but the Dutch were also able to celebrate the success of Odile van Aanholt, whose dad I raced Sunfish against for many years, and Annette Deutz in the 49er FX, taking silver despite the latter limited by a knee injury that left her in a brace all week. So bravo Zulu to them and to that country of theirs. Also a retiring great. One of the most memorable moments of the regatta came as Santiago Lanja, the Argentinian sailing great, called time on his career. Lanja represented Argentina at 7 Olympics, winning gold in the NACR 17 in Rio at the age of 54, and that was after beating a bout of cancer, while he was also 4-time world champion. I think they'd also taken one of his lungs out at that point, right, to deal with the cancer. And as his regatta came to a close, he was treated to a guard of honor as sailors from across the classes paid tribute to an all-time great. Must have been a great moment.
Yes, how fabulous.
I wish I had been there as well. So bravo Zulu to all of them. And when hopefully there will be a wrap-up video, Julie, at some point from World Sailing. And when we get that, we will play it indeed. Greetings from Sonoma. Lunabos is saying, Emmett's got another YouTube up. Clark Chapin, Betsy is my hero. What else here? David James, I think it is worth to say thanks to Julia's late husband, who was a very successful sailor. Julia, your German ship captain.
Yes.
Which is why we're sitting here, why I'm sitting here, because I met the two of you over at St. Francis, and he said, you know, Tom, I think Julia gave you a good deal on an apartment over there. I was living across the street, as many of you know. There were 146 at the USA ILCA Nationals 2 weeks ago at Crescent Sail Yacht Club in Detroit, and Grosse Pointe Yacht Club also in Detroit, North Shore, Detroit. The course used 9 Markset bots. Those are the autonomous marks. Clayton Embley, Betsy was a great help in setting up Sail Kentucky. Did you feed her any of your fine bourbon? I know Clayton is he's a fan of good bourbon, as I used to be before we switched, Julia, to Tequila.
I just have to add a second to say that in small boats, David's father,
David James.
James' father, was part of that crew, and the two other 70-year-olds, all of whom had rather incredible careers. One,
well, 70 is so old, I can't believe it.
no, they were, yeah.
70 is so old, Julia.
That's because you're going to be 70 in a week, no, in a month.
Emily said he sent her, he sent Betsy home with a bottle. We'll have to get Clayton. We'll have to do a bourbon tasting. I don't know if you all are bourbon fans, but on some national or international bourbon day, and we'll do some Wild Turkey, and we'll do some Maker's Mark, and we'll do some Jim Beam, and see what you all like and prefer as your bourbon. We'll get Clayton to be our bourbon expert.
I'm allowed to have a perfect Manhattan?
You can have whatever you want, Madam Commodore. You can have whatever you want. Yeah. Our feature today, this day in history, 22nd of August, you all know is the day that the yacht America won AC0, as I call it, that race around the Isle of Wight in 1851, 172 years ago today. I wonder if anything special is being done on the 175th. I mean, it's not a big holiday or a big anniversary or a big birthday, but it is nonetheless something. I wonder if there's something planned for that. We'll check around. Maybe some of you on here know. It all started, as you know, at the Royal Yacht Squadron. I used this image, this painting on Friday's show. Andrew said, yeah, we have that. He's a member of the Royal Yacht Squadron. He said, yeah, we have that in the ladies' dining room, which is what it's called, even though it's no longer reserved exclusively for women, nor is there an exclusive men's dining room. Mm-hmm. In 1851, the squadron looked something like that. This painting is from a few years after 1851, because they didn't even take possession of the Cowes Castle till 1857. After, I think it was 57, 58. Someone will correct me, but it was after the running of the 1851 America's Cup. They were not in the Cowes Castle then.
Do we need to know the background of the Cowes Castle?
Say that again.
How'd the Cowes Castle get to be the club?
That's another C word you got in there. We'll study that. So we'll have to do, maybe we'll get Emma to go over there and have a sit down with Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin, and they can tell us how that all happened. Yeah. But it was on this week, we told you also on Friday, because we celebrated the start of the regatta, which was on the 18th, which was the date of last Friday's show, when they had Her Majesty's Cup, opened a large class of cutters. And then they had, what a great social schedule. The annual dinner on Tuesday, Prince Albert's Cup, Prince Victoria's husband, Prince Albert, the Prince Consort, and then the ball on Thursday, followed by this open to yachts belonging to clubs of all nations, this radical concept to have an open regatta and invite yachts, not just from the Royal Yacht Squadron, and for a cup worth £100, which was real money in those days. And of course, also in those days, trophies were normally were named after what the cost of the trophy was. You all know it was cast by the Queen's silversmiths, Gerards of London. And that organization still exists. Now, here's that famous painting again.
Yeah, that's the best I've seen of that.
And I think it's a fairly recent. If it's a Buttersworth, obviously it's in either this last century or even the century before. I guess the last century.
Yeah.
Right. So this is supposedly the yachts going around the south side of the island, of the Isle of Wight. They went around clockwise, as you know, and it got real windy and rough over there, as it often does on the Atlantic side of the island. And this from the 37th America's Cup, americascup.com. And by the way, Magnus the Magnificent has written a fabulous historical article on his own.
Oh, good.
And it's really good, a little more detailed than the one I'm going to run here now, which is off history.com. It's a little more concise and a little more international, I suppose, a little less America's Cup centric. But Magnus has written a really terrific article, of which this painting is featured. It accompanies that article along with a few others. So go to americascup.com and have a look at Magnus Wheatley's
I miss him.
article. Well, he's writing
I
for
know.
them, and he can't go off and do his own. He's no longer an independent soul. He's got to
Yeah.
he's got to march to his boss's drumbeat. So that's that picture of America leading, apparently taking the lead. That's supposedly Aurora, the set boat that finished second. There was some trauma over there on that side of the island, but ultimately, as you all know, America rounded the Needles, came back in after passing the Queen's yacht, and came back into the Solent and won the race. But this is the Thomas Dutton painting, and then this has been copied by a number of others, including this painting. So they're virtually the same. This is the Fitzhenry Lane, also a Brit artist, who copied, and there was a drawing that both of these were based on that was done by this guy, Sir Oswald, what was his name? Sir Oswald Brierley, I think was his name. And this is another Oswald Brierley, and it was done by him and given to the Commodore of the New York Yacht Club.
How nice.
And it was done in September of 1851 by, Sir Oswald W. Brierley, another Brit artist who was there. And it was given in September of 1851 to Commodore John Cox Stevens. Now, I've been looking at this painting on and off for years. And if you look, there's something wrong with it. The stern of the boat looks Crutonic to me. Obviously, the boat's on port tack. You can see the overlap of the middle sail there is on the starboard or downwind side. So they're on port tack. But then in the back, it looks, I don't know, there's something wrong with the main sheet back there, and there's something wrong with the angle of the transom. And it looks like the boat is heeled over on port tack in the bow, but the stern almost looks like it's heeled over on starboard tack in the back end here. So I don't know what's going on with that. But nonetheless, it's a famously, it's a famous painting. And this from history.com. I'm going to read, I think, 6 paragraphs. Interesting, Brierley shows no staysail. Is that, I think the staysail came and went. Twisted, the hull wasn't twisted that much, I don't think, Alan Long. The flag representing the USA is different on different paintings. Gordon Smith is saying, hello, Larry Kennedy. Welcome to you, long time. He is in New York City. So let's go on to this article. And I'm going to read it all. This is on history.com, and I forgot I'd seen this before, but Paul Homchick sent me a link this morning. On August 20, this is the most succinct, precise, simple description of what went on then and since. So I thought we'd feature that today. On the 22nd of August, 1851, the U.S.-built schooner America bests a fleet of Britain's finest ships in a race around England's Isle of Wight. The ornate silver trophy won by the America was later donated, as you all know, to the New York Yacht Club on condition that it be forever placed in international competition. Today, the America's Cup is the world's oldest, continually contested, they should have put the word international sporting trophy in there, and represents the pinnacle of international sailing yacht competition. The history of the yacht America began with 5 members of the New York Yacht Club who decided to build a state-of-the-art schooner to compete against the British ships in conjunction with England's Great Exposition of 1851. The yacht America, designed by George Steers, the 100-foot black-hulled America, had a sharp bow, contrary to the British boats, a V-bottom and tall masts, and raked aft, making it strikingly different from the traditional yachts of the day. In June 1851, the America set sail from its shipyard on New York City's East River, bound for England. Manned by Captain William H. Brown and a crew of 12, the America raced and overtook numerous ships during the Atlantic crossing, and also during its crossing ultimately from France into the Isle of Wight, which spooked the Brits. After being outfitted and repainted in France, the America sailed to Cowes on the Isle of Wight to challenge the best British sailboats in their own waters. At Cowes, America welcomed all comers for a match race, but no English yacht accepted the challenge. And there was lots of gambling going on. There were bets being offered, and there were no takers because, as I said, when America sailed into the Solent, she was apparently met by a number of boats, and she just blew by them. And they said, uh-oh,
yeah.
If she is right, we're wrong.
Yeah.
because of the relative different shapes of the hull and, of course, the sails. Finally, on August 22nd, the America joined 14 British ships, and they got the number right, according to Bob Fisher's research. 14. One of the British ships didn't make it around. They didn't start ultimately, but there were 14 entries from the UK for a race, for a regatta around the Isle of Wight. The prize was the 100 Guinea Cup. No, that's wrong. It's the 100-pound cup, as you saw on that poster, and as we discussed with Andrew McIrvin last Friday. A 2-foot-high silver jug put up by the Royal Yacht Squadron. It was on their shelf, and they pulled it off the shelf and said, well, if we can't get any bets going here, we'll use this. How about this, America? In the 53-mile race, the America trounced the competition, beating the cutter Aurora by 22 minutes and finishing nearly an hour ahead of the third-place boat, the schooner Bacante. Queen Victoria watched the race from her royal yacht and at one point was asked, who is second, what is second? After seeing the America come over the horizon, her attendant reportedly replied, Your Majesty, there is no second. Now, that's probably apocryphal, but again,
it sounds good.
It sounds good, and it's been used since forever. We'll continue to use it, as does the History Channel. A few weeks on, there's some interesting things you maybe don't know. A few weeks after its victory, the America was sold to an Irish lord for about $25,000, real money in those days, giving its owners a slim profit over what they had paid for it.
Wow.
20 grand. It later went through a series of other owners, one of whom changed the America's name to Camilla, coincidentally. As the CSS Memphis, it was later changed to the Memphis, the Confederate ship, that's what CSS means. It served briefly as a Confederate blockade runner during the American Civil War. Confederate Navy sunk it in Florida, scuttled it to keep it away from falling into Union hands, over there on the Jacksonville side, I think. But it was found, raised, and rebuilt by the U.S. Navy, which renamed it the America and used it as a Union blockade ship.
Well,
I
didn't know any of that.
Exactly. So it fought in the Civil War on both sides.
Ecumenical.
Yeah, you got it. Exactly. Meanwhile, the first owners of the America had deeded the 100 Guinea Cup, the 100-pound cup. They called it the 100 Guinea Cup because the Americans didn't know any better, to the New York Yacht Club in 1857 to be put up as the prize in a perpetual international challenge competition for friendly competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first race for the trophy, renamed the America's Cup, but not in the first race. It wasn't until later that it was renamed the America's Cup by the media, by the way, was not held, and it was then not the America's Cup, it was the America Cup, only later kind of bastardized to be the America's, apostrophe S Cup. It was originally, as Dyer Jones will tell you, esteemed past Commodore New York Yacht Club, he'll tell you it was the America Cup. He still calls it the America Cup.
Yes.
When the British ship Cambria, it was not, the first was, the first match was not held until 1870, when the British ship Cambria competed against, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, 14 American yachts in lower New York Harbor out in the bay. The Cambria finished 10th. The schooner Magic won the race, hence was the first official winner of the America Cup as the defending nation. And we call that AC-1 in 1870. Refitted by the Navy for the occasion, America finished 4th. After service as a Navy training ship, the America fell into disrepair under private owners. And during World War II, 1942, it was in a shed, I think in Annapolis, and there was a winter snowstorm, and the shed collapsed and destroyed the yacht. And there's, the mast is the flagpole at Harbor Court in Newport.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
And the big eagle and the bunting and the beautiful treatment that was on the transom is in the front hall, if you call it, if that's the right word, at 44th Street, New York Yacht Club's clubhouse in Midtown Manhattan.
I must have seen that.
You must have seen that. So I think there's one more paragraph here, maybe two. From 1870 until the late 20th century, New York Yacht Club sponsored U.S. yachts successfully defended let me start again. New York Yacht Club sponsored yachts successfully defended the America's Cup 24 times in races generally spaced a few years apart. Since the 1920s, the America's Cup race has been between one defending vessel and one challenging vessel. Well, actually, since the late 1800s. But both of which are determined by separate elimination trials. In 1983, the United States lost the trophy for the first time in
132 years.
The longest winning streak in sport, in international sport. 132 years when Australia, too, defeated Liberty off Newport, Rhode Island. Thanks, Paul Homchick, for all of this. Much appreciated. And that latter-day history, many of you will appreciate. And since then, went to Perth in Western Australia, came back to San Diego. We defended it twice in San Diego and then lost it to the Kiwis in 95. It went to New Zealand. They lost it to that great yachting nation of Switzerland.
Oh, yes.
In 2003.
Yeah.
Swiss team crewed by Kiwis. Swiss held it until the Americans, Golden Gate Yacht Club, Oracle Team USA, won it back. We defended it in 13 and then lost it in 17. And then the Kiwis won it again, and the Kiwis defended it in 2021, and they're about to defend, we shall see if they can to successfully defend in 2024 in Barcelona of all places. Don't get me going on that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's stop there for a moment.
What?
Go ahead, Julie.
What? Yeah, what's that?
That's the America.
Oh,
We're
that's
going to
the
come back
America
to that in a minute. Yeah, twisted. I don't know what was the deal with that hull, but I don't think it was ever twisted like that. They used a windward traveler setting back then. Okay, Baton Rouge. Optical illusion. Rake that mast back. Well, you can see in this photo, this is an 1880s photo. It's the first known photo, I believe, 1891, of the yacht America after it had been gone through all those various owners, ended up back in the States. The rigs were straightened up. It didn't have the highly raked masts that the original America did, but I digress. Let's come back to that in a moment. How much time did America take for completing the 53 miles? I think the race started at 10 in the morning and ended at 8 at night. So call it 10 hours. Somebody will correct me, Stingray or others, but I think it was there about 10 hours. And remember, in those days, they started anchored. You had to lift your anchor.
Mm-hmm.
And America's anchor was fouled with another anchor of a British yacht, and she was about the last to get going and still managed to win. Of course, they took a shortcut around the east end of the island, too. But it was legal under the sailing instructions, it turns out, what they did. That an English captain, that the consul general of the Isle of Wight or of London, but I think it was the Isle of Wight, the U.S. consul found this captain.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was Southampton, but found this captain to help the guys of the Yacht America get around.
Local knowledge.
Yeah, local knowledge, indeed. Thank you from Newport, John Hanfield is saying. Yeah, Newport, Rhode Island, presumably. Ed Worley, the model of the America built from wood, is on display at the Sailing Center at the U.S. Naval Academy. I did not know that. Thank you, Ed Worley. A shed in Eastport, Clayton Embley, is saying, yeah, where America met its demise in Eastport, which is just across the bay, across the river from Annapolis. Bill Wingrove, the book Civil War Yacht is an excellent book about America's days after she was sold. It is a recent publication from 2019 or so. Thank you, Bill. We'll look that up. There are a series of pics of America in the 30s forward to her demise in the U.S. Navy records. She did not look bad until she was crushed in the shed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the NAB tower, Steve Gruber, thank you. They cut the NAB tower, but the sailing instructions did not require rounding the NAB tower to starboard, so they left it. They went inside between the NAB tower and the Isle of Wight. America, is that right, Alex Hayworth? They had 6 Brits on it? I did not know that either. Smart Fosey, Julia.
Oh, it's lovely.
Smart Fosey, and this picture from the 1890s, 1891, an old photo, and again, I think this is the first known photo of the boat with a new rig, and obviously the mast not raked as much. Probably the center of ever did not need to be so far aft because of the bigger sail plan aft, and the boat painted white in this photo. This is from the Library of Congress, of all places.
Nice.
Here in the U.S. Now, modern day, 3 boats, as far as I know, 3 replicas have been built. The Schaefer Brewing Company here in this country, in the Northeast, excuse me, Rudy Schaefer built a boat. There's some gentleman now in Europe who has built a boat, and then Troy Sears has ended up owning this version. And this is the Replica Yacht America. It's not quite true to scale. It's a little broader in the beam to give more accommodation below for this yacht, which Troy has owned for, I guess, the last 10 years or almost. And he uses it for, as a head boat and for whale watching down in San Diego and for parties and so on. He's also taken it to Bermuda for the America's Cup in 2017. This was in New York City. That's Troy at the wheel. He's a good friend of Fosey. And Chris Childers, who, now you see he's in the white uniform. That was the traditional crew uniform back in the day, sort of like the like the caddies in golf at Augusta, who all wear the white coveralls. So too did the crew on these boats back in the 1800s. And that is Chris Childers, who was for a number of years the dockmaster at Golden Gate Yacht Club.
Was he?
Yeah, hell of a good kid and a good sailor. And he went with Troy. He left Golden Gate to go with Troy to go to Bermuda. I don't blame him.
Yeah.
Now, you know who that is with Troy?
I do.
That is my beloved mother, Janice Davis. On her birthday in 2017, January 31st, 2017, she got to drive. And Troy stood there to be sure she didn't run into anybody, but she got to drive it at some length in San Diego Bay. And I think it still is one of her most, she's a national champion as a crew, and she's a good sailor, but she still talks about that.
Oh, yes. And who wouldn't? I mean,
She still talks about this. So I just end that with a little bit of a personal note. And let's go back to the comments. Broader in the beam, aren't we all? Rick Banner was saying, yeah. I think we all get broader in the beam as we age, I guess. Traditional handheld as well, yes. Good point. Traditional handheld radio, Alan Long. Okay. With that, we'll go into a segue. Any other comments? Of course, we'll pick them up, but we're going to do a segue to today's. I need some music for Ed Worley's Fosey Challenge. If Ed, you want to recommend some or anybody else does, maybe I'll find some copyright-free music for what is becoming a regular segment, Ed's Fosey Challenge, the AC History Trivia Quiz. And this, of course, relating to 83, which we'll be celebrating through September because of that big win by Australia 2.
Yeah.
132 years, breaking that 132-year winning streak. So Ed has prepared yet another one of these. And he asks, during the Keelgate confrontation between New York Yacht Club and the Australia 2 team, the Royal Perth Yacht Club team, led by Alan Bond, did Alan Bond threaten, but he did threaten to sue the Americans to stop them for attempting to do what? Now, at this point, we should have the Jeopardy music. Da, 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 da.
I know.
You got 30 seconds to see if you can come up with the answer. Well, we'll give you a multiple guess. A, did he sue them to attempt to stop them from trying to acquire the technical information about the keel, Australia 2's keel, from the Dutch tank test team? Did he try to stop them from hiring the Dutch engineer Joop Sloof to design a wing keel for Magic? Did he try to sue them or threaten to sue them for putting wings on the keel of Freedom itself, which was the 1980 Defender that Dennis still had but was no longer eligible to race because they'd broken their grandfather clause, or at least they wouldn't be competitive? Or D, delaying the starting date of the 25th, because New York did in fact talk about, in fact, in my office, I was executive director of USRU, and the New York Yacht Club America's Cup committee, when they were starting to get into it, they didn't want to talk down on the America's Cup committee's boat. They had a big, beautiful boat, which was down on the Goat Island docks, and people would walk by, and they were afraid people would listen and so on. So they moved their deliberations up to my office, and I wasn't there. I was outside, but I was helping them with some administrative stuff, but I was not in the room when they did it, but I was talking to people when they came out and going to dinner with some of them after those meetings. And they did, in fact, come to within one vote of postponing the Cup in That would have been, tell you what, that would have been something. So what was it? Is it A, B, C, or D? Did Alan Bond threaten to sue them for which of these 4 reasons? And let's see, Groover's got C. Baton Rouge has got A. Bill Wingrove's got D. Most of you have D. Chris Exley has A. Philip Laffin, D. Bill Porter, hi, Bill, up in Scout Country normally, has D. Julia, what's your answer?
Well, my first answer was A.
A. So it's most everybody is A or D. And the correct answer, here's your first clue. There's your first clue. Now you see on that, there's some feet here.
Yeah.
And it says the TAC Sutphin, okayed by Dennis Conner, NASA, Airsoft, Aerospace. Anybody now want to change? Yeah, Rick Bannerow wants to change, or he never, Ryman says B, but Bannerow now saying C. Here's your second clue. I'll go back to the slides rather than camera 4. And clearly you can all see that they're trying to attach a wing keel, kind of a delta wing shape.
Yeah.
Well, that's the shape on the right that they were trying to attach to the bottom of Freedom's keel, which was their trial horse. They'd already had Liberty going by then, but they wanted to try this wing on Freedom. And of course, it didn't work at all. Same as the Aussies who were trying wings on some of the other boats. And Peter DeSabry was trying wings on one of his boats. And you had to have, remember, Australia had a narrow root keel and a wide tip, and it had some other, and the keel, the hull was pretty deep. It was a combination of factors that made that wing keel work. But the answer is C, putting wings on the keel of Liberty's trial horse, Freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Philip Laffin, yeah, snuck by MOT. Bannerow, Rundle. So that's the answer. And here's a little more, and that is that Alan Bond confronted Johann Valentin, who was the designer of Liberty, when Freedom was being retrofitted with the wings, and said, quote, "I hope you know that wings are copyrighted. We can sue you for that," unquote.
Mm-hmm.
The wings bolted to the keel on Freedom created more drag to the keel and were discarded. Ben Lexon described the effort saying, quote, "It only added 24 square feet more for barnacles to grow on." And of course, Alan Bond never sued. That from Rick Bannerow. Thank you, Rick, for Rick Banner from Ed Worley's Fozy Challenge, the AC History Trivia. Thank you, Ed, for that. And we'll do that again, hopefully, next week. What do you think of that, Julia?
I think that's very interesting.
Now, do you recognize those gentlemen shaking hands over the cup there?
No.
Anybody for extra credit can name that. I pulled that slide up to help illustrate the Ed Worley History Trivia. Anybody going once, going twice?
It looks like Buddha.
Hard to believe they could sue. The Aussies knew that 6 meters had them before. Fun trivia, Chris actually is saying.
Yeah.
Lipton, Bill Porter's got one of them right. That's right. Who else? Lipton. DeSabry was going to build in fiberglass for 83, but he thought the organizers would ban them for competing. Who was saying that? Must be Alex Hayworth. He's another historian. Lipton and Vanderbilt. Steve Gruber. Ding, ding, ding.
Aha.
I got the answer. Smith cough drops. Philip Laffin.
Yeah.
Funny stuff. Turner, haha, no. Charlie Barr, no.
Mm. Oh, Lipton really deserved his honorary cup.
He did. He did indeed. Okay, so speaking of 83, as you all know, next month in Perth, the Royal Perth Yacht Club helping organize an Australia 2 reunion on the 40th anniversary of their 1983 win. This is the team in Newport in 83, including Leslie Green there, center row, third from the left, and our longtime friend. We're going to get Leslie on here, come on and tell us about that, and then probably maybe we'll get some live coverage of that at some point in Perth in a month's time, the 40th anniversary.
I regret mightily that I wasn't there, but everybody who was there swears it was the best ever.
It was a terrific event, if not the best ever, certainly among the best ever. And bravo Zulu to this team. It was a magnificent, magnificent effort. What are the other comments here? Going up, Mueller, Fritz is saying, just stepped away for a few moments, and anyone know the whereabouts of the yacht America built by Rudy? I was going to ask the same question, Fritz. Thank you for asking that, because I think the boat has fallen into disrepair, and I don't know the answer to that. Does any of you, Fozy, or anyone else, know the answer to the Rudy Schaefer Brewing? I think it got sold. I think it went someplace, and I think it's fallen into disrepair. Julia, I agree with Julia about Lipton. What did you say about Lipton?
He
Julia?
deserved the honorary cup.
Oh, exactly. From Mayor Jimmy Wagner.
Yeah. From the city of Newark.
Well, after he lost the 5th time.
Yeah, right.
And he was awarded that trophy, in a ticker tape parade down 5th Avenue. And he was awarded that little loving cup. Do you know what was engraved on it?
Better luck next time.
No, to the world's greatest loser.
Oh, yeah.
And he took that cup is on the 4th floor, or last time I looked,
yeah.
on the 4th floor at New York Yacht
I remember
Club,
that, yeah.
up just outside the wardroom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's there.
Yeah.
And he apparently liked the fact that he was considered to be the world's greatest loser. A lot of people will say that he almost single-handedly repaired the relations between the UK and the US. I mean, there were some other problems going on in those days between the two countries.
Yeah.
Is that Grant Simmer on the far left? No. Simmer, where is Simmer here? Let me look at the photo. Simmer is somebody else might pick him out quicker than I do.
I
don't see him in there. I see John Longley up here. There's Longley. There's Sir Jim Hardy. There's John Bertrand.
Yeah, I recognize him.
There's Tom Schnackenberg. There's Leslie. Any number of others. I don't, right off the bat, pick out Simmer. Look at Alan Bond, how young well, they're all young. Somebody will pick him out. We'll get Leslie on here, and she can go through all this. Lipton gave back so much to our sport. His trophies are everywhere around the world, right, Steve Gruber? There's even one in Joe Holtzman. Did you know there's a Lipton Cup in Colorado that one of the clubs in Denver uses? I mean, there's one in SoCal, there's one up here in NorCal, there's Lipton Cup down in the Gulf Coast, and many other places around the world, as Steve says. Steve Gruber. Tom Fishbeck, I jumped off the roof of the pub when Dennis did the Brody in Frio. I think the Schaefer boat was in the Med last I heard, Wingrove is saying. Thank you, Bill. In the harbor, what's that mean?
By the way,
in the harbor. He also did the glass bend he taught me on Lionheart. He did. Australia bought to use in the cup. It got about 3 square meters more. Yeah. And it was effective in lightish air, but that was about it. Florida XSORC. There's a America replica in New Zealand. Ken, there's a new name. Ken Davern. Hello, Ken. Welcome. So much for 1983. We're going to celebrate that for the next month or so, and celebrating today what happened. The biggest thing that happened in our sport, right? Ever. 172 years ago today. Now, related, I ask you a little corrector croutonic, because when we went to Frio in the lead up, 85, 86, 87, we were told, and I gave talks all across the U.S., raising money for the America II Syndicate New York Yacht Club's team, of which I was executive director. I was told that Perth was the most remote capital city, the most remote major city in the world. Is that true? Is that correct or croutonic?
I think of
Is that correct or croutonic, Julia?
It could well be true, but I think of the bottom of Africa.
Bottom of Africa, okay. Well, it depends to a degree how you define capital city or major city. Most definitions are what city is the furthest away from another city of at least 100K. Now, Perth is over 1 million. And if you use a million, if you use not just the city, because some cities are at, like San Diego County is the incorporated area is the whole thing. If you use San Francisco, there's only 700,000 or 800,000 people in San Francisco proper, but in the metro area, in the Bay Area, there's millions. So if you're doing it, depending upon how you look at it, but what is the most remote city of over 100,000 people to another city of over 100,000? Banro is asking Ulaanbaatar. Ed Worley is saying Honolulu. Well, here are your choices. Monica Diaz says it's very hot in Spain. Hello, Monica.
Yeah.
Yes, Ken Davern. Ken, how do you pronounce your last name? Give me a phonetic pronunciation. Davern. It looks like you are good friends with Steve Groover. And again, welcome to the show. The greatest distance to another city, population over 100K. Auckland. B, Anchorage, Alaska. C, Honolulu. D, Perth. Is that right, that it's Perth? Or E, Reykjavik in Iceland. I didn't know their Olympic code was ISL. I thought it was ICE, but it's Islandia or something, ISL. Thierry de Jong thinks it's Honolulu. I think he's agreeing with Ed Worley.
Yeah.
Julia, what do you think?
Oh, I'm tempted to say Honolulu, but because I don't really know any better, Reykjavik maybe it.
Stingray says C. He thinks it's Honolulu. Any other guesses before we move forward? Yes, Ken. Bobby Wilmot cut a wide swath through any number of places when he was a kid. He was a good friend, still is. Stingray is saying B. Anchorage, Alaska.
Yeah.
Ken Davern or Davern? Ken, you got to give me a phonetic pronunciation. Says D, Perth.
Mm-hmm. Well, it could well be.
Correct, Pedro Foiling Sailor. Perth is a backwater with drop bears and flies. Well, again, it depends a little bit about what metric you use, but this is the answer, Julia. Your favorite. It's Honolulu.
Mm-hmm.
And Alan Long says B. Okay, but here are the measurements according to Epic City. I can take the downstream keyer off. City Extremes, and there's another thing called Epic City. It says that the number one is Honolulu, which is 3,800 and change, almost 3,850 kilometers from Daly City, which, as you know, Julia, is just south here of us, San Francisco. It's another big city on the south. It's just outside of the city limits of San Francisco. So they say it indeed is Honolulu. But look at this. According to Wikipedia or Google Maps, Auckland is 2155 from Sydney. So even Auckland is further away from another major city than Perth is, which is supposedly only 2136 from Adelaide, 2136 kilometers. And then you've got this other town up there. What's it called? How do you pronounce that? Petropolis. You're all Googling it now. Homchick's Googling it. Okay. It looks to me like by most metrics, Julia, Honolulu is the most remote capital city or city. Now, Honolulu's only got 600,000 or 700,000 people, but on the whole entire city of Oahu, or entire island of Oahu, there's well over 1 million people.
Yes.
So if you use the million-person metric, it's probably the same. Perth is out there, though. We had a great time in Perth. And just to wrap this up, we won't quibble over a few hundred kilometers. Paul Homchick used ChatGPT, the 4th edition of that. Gordon Smith is right. He thinks it's Honolulu, but do you recognize that photo? Speaking of Perth and Fremantle, that is the 1986 12-meter Worlds, one of the most spectacular events in the modern history of the sport. That is our longtime friend Guy Gurney's, one of his famous photos. Sharon Green has some famous photos from that whole fabulous event. This is the only aerial I've seen. This is Guy's aerial shot. Now that picture, I'll go back and take the lower third and the credit off. That is a spectacular picture.
It is.
Ed Worley is saying. And for extra credit, does anyone know the only team that did not race? The first three boats there are Australia 3, I think. Yeah, Australia 3, the new boat of the Bond Syndicate. Second place in that photo are the French. Third place is America 2. Fourth place is the other Australia 2 boat. And I'm not sure, that's a Canadian boat. Yeah, that's KC. In fifth, anybody for extra credit, remember what team from the 87 Cup did not race? Clayton Allen Embley is correct. Stars and Stripes declined to sail. They were practicing where? Remember, Julia?
No.
Hawaii.
Oh.
They did not sail in the Worlds.
Oh,
They were
yes.
practicing in Hawaii.
Oh, yes.
And they won the Cup.
Yes. And much to everybody's.
I mean, it's just like the Kiwis who showed up in Bermuda. They were the last to show up,
Right.
train down in Auckland.
Right.
Came to Bermuda, and other than their capsize, they pretty well cleaned everybody's clock.
Right.
Okay, enough about all that. 12-meter world's fabulous event. The whole 84, 5, 6, 7, 80, that cup in Frio. Was that AC 25 or 26? Worley will know. Guy Gurney photo. Thanks, Guy, if you're watching, for that fabulous aerial photo. Speaking of the America's Cup, I don't have a lot of news. They're practicing. The Italians are back in Cagliari, and they've been out in light air and not able to sail, and sometimes they're able to sail in Barcelona. But the only real news is that the French have shown up in their AC-40, their one-design boat. A flying start is the headline for Orient Express Racing Team's all-new AC-40 in Barcelona. The Orient Express Racing Team's newly arrived AC-40 one design foiling monohull has taken to the water and the air in her first test sail off the AC venue in Barcelona. Okay, that and 385.
It looks like it's
doesn't
ready
get
to
you.
fly.
Well, it is ready to fly. Those boats always, if there's any breeze at all, they do look like they're ready to fly. And hopefully there is going to be breeze.
Yep.
But again, that news and 385, even 585 these days doesn't buy you a Starbucks, a coffee at Starbucks. Comments are all flying in here. Nautical Cordy. It was Gary Eversole. Long time, Gary. America 2 getting fooled into thinking they were fast, Steve Brewer. Yes, sir. Well, that was 42 that we were racing in that event, which was the fastest of our three boats, as it turns out. Talk about donor pressure. When you raise a lot of money and you build two more boats, 44 and 46, and 44 was slower than 42, and 46 was arguably slower than 44. We went the wrong direction. We got smaller when the other teams, including Dennis, were getting bigger. That turned out to be the right formula. It's a touch ominous how the wind has disappeared in late August, Stingray is saying, again, meaning in Barcelona. Well, again, tying into Barcelona, the TP52 World Championship, part of the 52 Super Series, is going on in Barcelona, and they started, I think, yesterday, and they were supposed to race today, but there was, guess what?
No wind.
No wind.
I heard that. Yeah.
Here's the video.
Get ready to join us in Barcelona for the 2023 Rolex TP52 World Championship. Starting Tuesday, 5 days of action-packed, white-hot racing, featuring 10 teams from 7 different nations, all vying for the world title. Quantum Racing, powered by American Magic, welcome back Terry Hutchison for 1 week only. But the big question is, can they defend the world title they won in Cascais in 2022? Double world champions Platoon from Germany have just won in Menorca, and Italian tactician Vasco Vescotto is doubly inspired to win another world title. Crevezza are circuit leaders, winners of 2 from 3 regattas so far this season. A world title would be the cherry on the cake for them already. But Allegri, Gladiator, Phoenix and Sled all have what it takes to win the World Championship. So, as the Rolex TP52 World Championship Barcelona 2023 sails into the America's Cup waters, right into the heart of the Lion's Den, get ready for the fight all the way through the week. Join us every day, 5 days of racing, live on 52 Super Series channels.
Okay, so that's the preview video for the TP52 Worlds, part of the 52 Super Series going on. You don't see as much publicity. We're going to cover it because it's still probably the top monohull. It is the top monohull professional circuit in the world. So that's coming up as it's going on now in Barcelona. As Stingray said, it's a little light. And then coming up in a few weeks, 3 weeks' time, we've got the next SailGP event in Saint-Tropez, and then we've also got this first preliminary regatta in Villanova down the coast from Barcelona in the AC40s, the One Designs. We'll see how exciting that is. Bloody hell. Comments have stopped. It's interesting, Julia, how in a cool video, nice video that was.
Yes.
When that plays, the comments do indeed.
Well, it's all right.
Go away, and let's wrap this one up. We're on the last leg now.
Yes.
Again, terrific photo. That's for our friends up in Nova Scotia, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Last Leg to Gloucester by Thomas Hoyne. Lived in the early part, most of the last century. This is strictly speaking, not yacht racing, but I thought this was interesting. Several of you sent me links to this video. So it's sort of a back to the future when we talked about this. This is one of the guys that was painting the America's Cup stuff we used earlier, Fitzhenry Lane. And he's from Boston. And he painted this. I thought this had to be an Aussie clipper ship, but it's not. And it was painted in 1851. It's a clipper ship called Southern Cross, hence why I thought it was Aussie, but it was American, built in East Boston. And it's leaving Boston Harbor for, in the days of the clipper ships and the international trade. But it's all changing, apparently, because we've got these cargo ships. But are we back to the future now with cargo ships going to have wing sails?
Notice anything different about this carrier ship? It's been fitted with 2 special sails called wind wings, which study how harnessing wind power can cut emissions and energy usage in the shipping sector. This voyage is the 5-year-old Pyxis Ocean's first with its new sails. A first of many as the maritime industry as a whole explores new technologies in an attempt to move away from dirty bunker fuel.
The maritime industry's got a decarbonisation challenge ahead of it. This is not going to solve the problem entirely, but it's a step in the right direction.
Cargill, one of the world's largest shipping charterers, has been developing the Pyxis Ocean's nearly 125-foot-tall Wind Wings pilot project for years. It's a course companies in the maritime industry have been forced to take, as investors and environmental groups push them to accelerate decarbonization in an industry which accounts for nearly 3% of global CO2 emissions. But as new technologies blossom, the idea of harnessing wind for energy is an old one. Before the switch to steam and diesel engines, wind was once the common way of propelling ships.
It is kind of back to the future, if you like.
Simon Schofield is the Chief Technology Officer at Bar Technologies, the company that developed Windwing sails, which were then built by Norway's Yara Marine Technologies.
When you see an aircraft come to land and it deploys its leading edge flap and its flaps at the back when a plane lands, we do something very, very similar, which allows us to control what we call the camber, the shape of the wing, which controls the amount of power. Then we can align the wing at any direction compared to the wind direction. And this is done all automatically, and it maximizes the amount of energy we're effectively harvesting from the wind.
The sails don't only cut down CO2 emissions, Schofield adds, it also cuts down how much fuel they purchase. He says the Pyxis Ocean can save up to 40% of fuel consumption, which he believes is a step in the right direction, considering how expensive fuel has become.
This has got the potential to be mainstream. Obviously, it doesn't suit all vessels because of practical reasons, but certainly on bulk carriers and tankers, we can see a large proportion of new builds and a huge number of retrofits in the coming years being fitted with wind technology of one sort or another, both from an environmental standpoint, but also as the cost of fuels become more expensive, and especially the adoption of future fuels, it's going to mean that it becomes economically a bit of a no-brainer as well.
Cargill says the Pyxis Ocean will sail from Singapore to Brazil and is then likely to transport a cargo of grain to Denmark. The vessel is said to then remain in the North Atlantic area to maximize wind usage.
Well, saving 40% of the fuel with those sails? Wow.
What they don't say is that it takes 7 days.
Longer?
No, it takes 30 days to cross the ocean rather than 7, which it is currently.
What would your late great husband think of all that? He was a sailor.
He was.
Futurist?
He'd probably look more to the practical side. He went from free packing.
Free to containers. You dealt with that whole era. Yeah.
Which was good.
Well, for sure. Okay, well, thanks to Reuters and to Cargill for that. We'll see how that plays out. I'm not quite so sure. I could have used that in Corrector Crutonic, but, I guess it's good they're trying. It'll be interesting to follow the technology. And, of course, it looks just like wing sails in the America's Cup and a few others.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I read a pretty long article which said that the time made for lots of carbon in other ways. So it wasn't.
We shall see, Julia.
Yes.
Okay, let's get into whiskey. I'm saying here we got to go. We got to wrap this up.
Sorry.
Hour and a half in. And Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, we got a few good ones here. What do you think of this one? It's supposed to ward off frivolous lawsuits.
That's good.
I thought that was really good. Graham Sweeney sent that. And then this one will dedicate to Jody. Non-alcoholic beer is like watching porn on the radio. You want to give a finger shake for that one?
No.
Huh? It's funny, isn't it? Ryman sent that in
Yeah.
from Cape Town, South Africa. Now, this one takes the cake. Peter Stevenson sent this in. Excuse me, miss. On the roof of the hotel, you are indeed permitted to take off your bikini, and I see that you've covered your small buttocks with a towel. But, how to put it, you are lying on the skylight over the dining room.
Oh.
Pedro Foiling Sailor. Oh, my goodness. And this from Banner had to put this in. Caption contest. And his caption, he sent this one in. It takes big balls to be a bimbo. Now, that's the Brotherhood of International Mark Boat. They really exist.
Yeah.
Brotherhood of International Mark Boat Operators. And that was his submission for a caption contest. And there could be any number. He sent 2 or 3 others, but I thought that was by far the best.
Yeah, that's good.
And, these guys are arguably the hardest working people on the race committee.
Yeah.
They go out there, they're bouncing around. They don't get any of the real credit at the prize giving. They don't get to get up there. If I were running the race committee over at St. Francis, the ERC, they call it the Executive Race Committee Chair. I would say, guys, instead of the race committee chair or the Commodore handing out the trophies, why don't we have the MIBOs? Why don't we have the mark set people hand the trophies out for this regatta? Because they really do have a tough job, and we salute them.
And they get no credit, but a miss mark.
That's right. They get a lot of blame and not much. Exactly right, and not much credit. Okay, that gets us through Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Julia, you like to say?
Oh, please, like, follow, and share.
And luck too. While you're at it. Have some good luck. Comments are welcome, even in replay. We appreciate those of you who are patrons via Patreon. Become a patron, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. And we appreciate the support we get. We also appreciate, thank you, in International Code Flags, to those who give us audio, video, and images for today's show, or lent us in any event. Julia, any last thoughts?
No, not really.
None at all?
It's a cruel, cruel world.
172 years
Yeah.
ago today, the oldest trophy in international sports, which our sport is lucky, ours beloved sport is
Yes.
lucky to celebrate.
And I love the fact that we are indeed quite international, and in every way. So.
One last comment, indeed, Julia. As Matt Bounds, who's an esteemed race officer, says, we do it for a soggy sandwich, a T-shirt, and the adoration of masses. Clark, who's also a superb race officer, contributor to the sport, smart plug for our sport. Thanks, everybody. We hope to see you on Friday when we'll do this again, same time, same channel. In the meantime, sail fast, sail sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.
Yeah.